And we're live. Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Game Theory Guy. I am going to be doing this part solo for the first time in quite some time because I want to interrupt the pattern that's been created, because that's how important what I'm going to tell you tonight is. So normally, like for the past, 97 weeks, I've been showing up consistently for this audience on Tuesday and Thursday nights and answering all your questions, being here consistently every single week. And the reason I did that is for a lot of reasons, but the reason I want to focus on now is I wanted to find a way for you to be able to show up for yourself. And that's really what the idea of time pays me is all about. Now, you're going to hear about how rich this can make you, and you're going to see the math. So that's probably going to be the biggest motivating factor for you to use this system. And that's why using this system will be very inevitable for everybody who invested in Pulse Chain and Pulse X, especially because the incentives went from not existing to being insane. And part of it, I can say, is due to a discovery in how penalties have occurred in HEX and how that same model, in fact, can be used to help motivate people to do the right thing for themselves by time locking, right? We all know that that's the most valuable investing strategy, but that doesn't mean that people are going to suddenly change their behavior, right? If we zoom out outside of crypto and we look at what kind of breakthroughs are needed in order to get mass adoption, well, money is going to have to be fixed first, or at least the idea that people are used to, because when people save, it's for the long term, it's pretty crazy. Like that's not the best play because of inflation. And so the world has really been punished for saving for quite some time now, for decades. And so when you invent something like HEX, or you invent something like Time Pays Me, and it gives people the ability to do the right thing, there still needs to be incentives in place for people to do it. And the more ways that you can get people to show up for themselves and to time lock, the better. And so just a couple of hours ago, I released a description of the game theory that we're using for the incentives. Smart Vault Me was the project name for the past months, and a bunch of people joined the Telegram. A bunch of people have been active. I talked to probably over 90 hexagons. I did a live stream with lots of members of the community that are very well respected. So that was about 20 or 25 people. And then when I went to the Pulse Chain meetup in Las Vegas, I talked to about 70 people face to face. Like, that's all I was doing for 4 days, all day, every day, was having 20-minute conversations with everybody I could find to get their feedback and to find out what we needed to put into Smart Vault Me in order to make it better. Because you've already got a way to steal your vault back from a hacker. And that's simply because pretty much the problem with crypto is, as soon as somebody gets their hands on it, it's over. Which is why when you wrap it up in a smart contract and say give yourself a week, whenever somebody tries to withdraw, give yourself a week to catch that, to get notified, to flip a switch that says, actually, my pre-selected recovery wallet is going to be the one who actually gets the funds, and not the person who hacked me and who got my seed phrase or whatever the situation. And so that's truly innovative. And we've seen billions of dollars adopt things like Gnosis Safe, which is a weaker version of this mechanism, right? So they're using multi-sig, and we're using a week-long delay, basically so that you don't have to give up control of your crypto before you get hacked in order to be able to recover it, right? Or enable to be able to prevent somebody getting it. So that's very innovative. And we've seen, even the founder of Ethereum, Vitalik, with his billions of dollars, he, or maybe hundreds of millions, billions, somewhere in there, he himself uses Gnosis Safe, something that he didn't invent, but that he likes the benefits of. And so this particular project going forward now is going to be called Time Pays Me, because although it doesn't emphasize like the security side of things, that's not going to be the primary reason why the world adopts crypto for security. That's going to be a basic requirement, right? So we kind of have to adjust our expectations when we go bragging to the outside world, even if something in crypto is being done for the first time and being invented in this fashion, where you can steal your crypto back from a hacker under some more common circumstances. That's nothing to brag about to a no coiner. It's like, really, you guys didn't fix that yet? Well, all right, so now we got that fixed. That's pretty cool. And I think that's something a lot of people care about. And I think I've already gotten feedback from people that a lot of people will use the system for the security benefits, right? But we wanted to get the rest of it right when it comes to the game theory of time locking. And at first, I was against incentives, which is really funny because now incentives are, I think, a major part of why there will be mass adoption within the Pulse Chain and HEX community, within the Pulse Chain and Pulse X community, right? And everybody who owns those tokens are hexagons anyway, pretty much like 90%. And so that's another mechanic that we're going to have to keep track of and consider along the way, because game theory is something that when you get it right, it can do really miraculous things, like allow you to trust people on the internet that they haven't been double spending their coins. Right? So that's like an innovation. That's something that changed the game. Hex is an example of something that changed the game. It used inflation and other mechanics, Bitcoin free claim, emergency end stake, penalty being paid as a bonus. It offered all these benefits, the possibility of great price appreciation. That's what got people to start using Hex. And it should have been that people were already willing to use Hex just for the time locking, because that's the best way to go. But it's already kind of been proven that that's not how people work. I mean, even people who've done well in Hex kept telling me, you got to get the incentives right. Like, even if time locking my coins got me rich, people were saying, that doesn't mean I want to time lock my coins. And I found that really fascinating, and ended up changing my entire position on it. And that's what led to some of the breakthroughs that we'll talk about tonight. But the headline for anybody that really doesn't care about the intricacies of the system, and I think a lot of people will care because it's so brilliant and because you'll have so many aha moments along the way. The headline here is that there are only two coins that have done an 18,000x in 656 days. That's Hex and Shiba Inu. And I think all the 100, I started out my Twitter thread saying that I think 120,000 people who all participated in Pulse Chain and Pulse X sacrifice, which combined user controlled sacrifices were 1.7 billion between both the different projects. The thing that people want more than mainnet in their hearts and pocketbooks is to get it to be in the top, to join the ranks of the coins that did 18,000x in 656 days. Now, if the choice was be able to get that and have mainnet launched now, I think a lot of people would pick that. But if the choices are, you're going to be waiting for Pulse Chain for a couple more months anyway, so you might as well get excited about the other thing now that's going to add a force multiplier on top of everything. It's going to add trustless yield to the mix. And another way, I guess, for people who aren't as familiar with the term, you haven't watched the show for 97 weeks. Another way to say trustless yield is to say like it's provable and it's transparent. And in this case, it's not even inflation driven, which is kind of cool. So the headline here is that when I went and started crunching numbers on even how much people got paid just from the emergency end stake penalty, which doesn't get used that much in HEX compared to like how many HEX coins there are. On any day, on any given day, the average amount of HEX that gets paid out in emergency end stake penalties relative to the amount of HEX that's staked is 0.007%, right? So, but remember that adds up every day. And anyway, so what do you get after the end of 10,034 days, which is when I did the math a day or two ago? Well, what you get is you get a 4% return. With the 10,000 HEX that you started with your one TShare on day 3, which is the first day we had a USD price for TShares that I went back to on hexdailystats.com. You know, you ended up today now with 4.3%. And that still doesn't sound like a lot. That doesn't seem like something somebody would get out of bed for, even in this world of high flying cryptos. But the thing that we have to consider is that the way that Time Pays Me has designed its fees could actually be 100x more used, more profitable, or maybe even way more than that. And so the fact that you started off with that little 4%, remember that's paid in HEX terms. And so if you went back, and I did this, and I went back to day 656 in HEX, when there was an all-time high, the day was closing at 48 cents per HEX. I went and I looked at the 200, well, over 200 HEX that had accumulated from early end stake penalties at that point. Basically, that was a 19x from your principal of a $7 T-share. It was a 19x in USD price appreciation just from a tiny fee that nobody hardly takes, right? And so when we look at this like minor penalty over time, it really changes the game, because I think it's highly likely that people, when they use our system, they'll be able to use it for free, I imagine. And nothing's final at this point, and I'm still looking for people's feedback, but I definitely think we've got it nailed. This has been like, you know, with everything that I know in my 6 years of studying cryptocurrency and like, etc., you know, and with everything I've learned about HEX, covering it full time, doing 97 weeks of shows twice a week, you know, hundreds of hours of streaming, all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm telling you, this is it. This is the way that you are going to get possibly a major return on top of what you're getting otherwise. And this is, again, another way to earn trustless yield. But this time it's not from inflation. And every time we add a force multiplier on top of what we're doing here, what it does is it multiplies the gains even more from any point in the system relative to your starting principal in dollar terms, right? So if Pulse Chain does a 1000x, and if it's deflationary, so the supply is going down, and people are getting paid a amount that's way more than motivating. It's like, if you don't get in on it, you're getting diluted from the system. And you can look at my math. People are going to find out about it and do it. And the more people who participate, the more fees that can generate, the more that the price appreciates. But remember, the fact that people are locking up their coins for a certain amount of time causes the price to appreciate. It's simple as supply and demand. It's like not even up for debate. And so that's why I think it's so exciting and so brilliant. Why, at some point, I think you'll have an aha moment too as you're learning about the system. Is that it'll make a big difference whether you do it or not. And I think that'll cause people to do it, because who wants to miss out on gains that you could be getting with your savings, right? It's and especially with everybody who did so well in HEX. So I don't have to release a token. I don't have to do a sacrifice. I don't have to even sell any HEX to make this product, because I have a badass team of devs now who are producing code. They are they're ready to go. And one of them, of course, everybody knows, is my best friend in crypto, Future Us. And so I mean, this is another example of how I am being a thought leader. And I think it's also really cool that I invented a way to design a system that doesn't take anything away from HEX. It actually benefits people in HEX, because HEX holders are the ones who sacrifice. I could speculate maybe 90% of the $1.7 billion is from people who made money in HEX, not just people who put money into HEX even though they didn't know about it before, but people who got a 100x, a 1000x, a 10,000x in HEX. A lot of those people either already understand time locking, and all they need is some sweet trustless yield to get in on something. But I think also people are going to do it because it's good for you psychologically, right? And I just want to let you know, I'm going to stay here until your questions are answered. So I see the comments are piling up, and shout out to you if you're here, because you're here on the footsteps of crypto history. There's no other way to put it. So what does it look like when somebody's using the system, and what are some other parts that I put into my white paper that came out as a 34 tweet thread that actually looks really sick, and is that's, at the end of the day, I'm not going to make decisions based on formality or history or what a bunch of people in an ivory tower think, which is where white papers came from, before marketing people in crypto got the incentives wrong, thinking that they were the only ones who needed to get rich. And then sometimes people call it a gray paper if it's shilling something that only enriches the founders or is a marketing driven white paper. But in this case, I don't know what to call it. The bottom line is that I'm going to go to where the people are, and there's a lot of people on crypto Twitter, and that's where Hexicans rule the skies, if you will. And so anyway, I'll also release it. I will also release it in a more formal fashion on Medium and other places. I don't know. Next conference, you can get a signed copy if you want, but no expectations. So I told the story of Greg Schoen, and that's going to be worth revisiting. It's an incredible story of how we can already show in Bitcoin that price appreciation is such a strong factor that this man would have taken $102, and if he had used Time Pays Me, if he had time locked for 15 years, he would have been selling, let's say he's selling his drip, right? Let's take that example. So the entire time you're time locked, you have one bucket that's 10%, and then you have another bucket that's 90%. And the 10% bucket is there as a temptation the entire time. That first 10% that you can take out, and that's called an early payday when you take it out early. And what happens, for a lot of people, they wouldn't lock up the coins unless they meant to, I hope. And so a main reason why somebody would want to take their 10% out early would be because of a lot of price appreciation, right? And that's not the only circumstance in which people will do that, but that's a big one. So the fee, if you want to take your 10% out early, is 10% of the 10%. So that comes out to 1% of your principal. And unlike the HEX emergency end stake penalty, where you can nuke your entire thing if the price appreciates too much, or if you get hacked, or if you're trying to wreck yourself, in our system, the way that it's designed is so your drip starts to pay back what you can think of as you took a loan from yourself. That 10% that you thought you could time the top, or you wanted to be a trader, or the price appreciated so much that your plan changed. Like, the goal is for your plan to not change too much, right? And so with Time Pays Me, you're only going to be able to take 10% early payday. You're only going to be able to take that 4 times in the system, because unless you pay it back early, basically with other funds, which is possible and cool, and people will do that. But if you don't pay back the 10% from yourself, the drip that you're getting gets cut in half until that 10% is paid back. And so, cool, you won, you got 10%. Like, so you get to sell it, and hopefully that helps, right? But again, it's about saving yourself from yourself primarily, and then having the behavior, and then having that behavior align with what's good for the entire system, not just the holders, but people who are coming in new, right? When you do an 18,000x, you leave a lot of people behind, and you get into major bubble territory. And so when people can, if everybody's incentivized to use the system, and everybody can take 10% out, if things get too crazy, if you start to get a million X, people can take 10% out, and it's like a circuit breaker in the system that is creates a balance between the different market factors and individual factors. Anyway, so it's going to take 22% of whatever time you've locked for in order for your drip, which has been 50% diverted, in order for your drip to pay back your 10%. Because depending on how we code it, basically, which we're still exploring the most elegant way to do the math. I am fairly confident to extremely confident that we have a way to do the math. But then the fun part becomes, how do we do the math with the least amount of gas and the least amount of waste, right? Which is fine. That's a fun challenge, and it's important, right? So anyway, yeah. So once you take your 10%, you can't take another 10% out unless you pay back the loan early, or your drip repays it. But then the really cool thing is, like, because of how the system is designed, even though something can't happen automatically on the blockchain, we can go back and calculate, or you go back and calculate at the end of your term how much interest you're owed. Well, it's not really interest, how much bonus from other people's fees you earned. And essentially, the way that the claim that can be true is that once your drip finishes paying back the loan that you took from your future self, all of a sudden, your ability to earn fees from others gets turned back on, right? It gets unpaused, right? So there are two consequences when you take an early payday of 10%. The first consequence is your drip gets cut in half for 22% of your time. The second consequence is the bonus that you're earning from others gets paused until your 10% gets replaced one way or another, right? And so that's really cool, because even if somebody didn't change their behavior, they could get into a situation where doing nothing to them puts them back in a situation where they're earning trustless yield, right? And, I don't really think it's always important to emphasize another point, but I'm open to feedback on that. Like, the fact is, you could do this with any ERC or PRC20 crypto. So anything on Pulse Chain or Ethereum Proof of Work or Ethereum Fair, like, our smart contract will work for you with any crypto that you like. And so that goes more to like this thread of how will this change people's behavior? Well, if you give people enough incentive, they will participate. If you can prove that they're going to miss out on massive gains, whether it's you're going to miss out on a 2x of what you otherwise would have had, or if it's way more than that, if it's tens of thousands of x that you'd miss out on. And these claims, it'd be easy to mistake them for hyperbole and lies. But I've already posted enough where you can verify how I'm getting these numbers. And when you go verify, you will see that I am being extremely conservative, which is almost it is unbelievable. You have to see it. And that's the cool thing about math, is the math isn't going to lie to you. It didn't take me that long to go on HEX Daily Stats and figure out what emergency end stake penalties are paying, how much that relates to your principal, and how wild just 4% of essentially a fee being paid by anybody in the system who wants to pay it, and that fee is a punishment. So if you create a fee where, see, the reason why the fee is going to be so attractive to people, I think, is because at the end of the day, all you're doing is paying people to hold up the price for you, right? Because, if you wanted to make it 0.0001% to take an early payday, that wouldn't work, because nobody would sign up for the system. And so having like just the right amount and having a system that balances itself, because when I take my 10%, I can be sure that I'm actually benefiting from that as value is transferred by me almost and the other members of the system into price appreciation, right? Because what happens if more people lock up their coins? Because there's a little bit of APY that turns into a lot, right? Or a little bit of bonus incentive that turns into a lot. Well, what happens is the coins get more scarce in the here and now, and the price appreciates. And so there will be a balance, probably, that is much more harmonious and palatable than the early end stake penalty, right? And again, this is being done with no inflation, which is why, again, it's a really powerful model. If you're talking about a crypto that can do something like Bitcoin did, or something like HEX or SHIB or ETH, if Pulse Chain and PulseX, if those turn out to be like these other cryptos where the price appreciation is unbelievable, you're going to need time locking more than ever, but it's going to be harder to do. And so that's what this solves basically. But yeah, so Greg, you know, I hope me calling him out on Twitter and like using him as an example, I hope it doesn't make him unfollow me. But I'm honored to be followed by the guy who's like the most memed tweet or the most famous tweet really in Bitcoin price history, right? And he's I've brought this up a lot of times before, his story, but here, of course, I worded it really well that Greg would be worth over $20 million now with his $102 investment in Bitcoin from 2011. You know, that's only 10 and a half years ago. I dedicated the thread to him, and you know, I'm using it as an example of why what I invented is going to be a game changer, right? And so I come back to him later on to look at what would have happened if he used Time Pays Me, which wasn't available then, although there was code that you could run written into Bitcoin back then that would allow people to time lock, but there was no obvious incentive to do so. And so it didn't get used that we know of very much, certainly not by Greg. So I'll hop down to like the end of the thread where I go over the math of like how he would have done. And then we can get more kind of into like the story of it all and talk about more benefits that people have from Time Pays Me. Such a good name, right? Time Pays Me. Got to give it up for that. So yeah, so here I did the math, right? And it's funny because the first time I did the math, I did it wrong because I was staying up late working on it. But I double, triple, and triple checked it here, so no worries. So if he had used Time Pays Me to sell his Bitcoin and he dripped his Bitcoin monthly, that would have given him 8.5 Bitcoin to drip for a period of 180 weeks. And because he started in May 2011, the point where he would be at now is month 138. So he'd be 138 months into his 15-year time lock drip, basically. And so his $102 would have turned into 10.5 million as the monthly sum that was sold. So I took the Bitcoin prices for every month from May 2011 to now, and then I like pretended like he was selling 8.5 Bitcoin at each of those points. Like then I added up all the dollars he would have gotten. You know, sometimes it was the price of Bitcoin was a few dollars. Sometimes it was tens of thousands, right? But like that's how I modeled it. And the other assumption that I made is that Greg wouldn't have taken 10% out early, although that's set aside in a separate bucket. So it's like a reward for him at the end that hasn't tripped out yet, right? So that's kind of cool. And in Time Pays Me, you can time lock for a period that ends up acting like in between a week and 30 years, right? I mean, theoretically, you can time lock for a second, and then, you know, then you can wait a week while your withdraw request is giving you some added security benefits that nobody's trying to hack you. But Yeah. So, I mean, that's important to point out. It's like, but for people who are utilizing the drip, as designed and all that, they could be selling what's coming out on the drip once a week, or they could be waiting. You could wait a month or a year before you touch anything that's dripped. So, like, drip just means you're allowed to withdraw it without, there's no fee or penalty. You can actually use the entire system for free if you never take your 10% out. And the odds are you'll be getting paid by the impatience of others, right? So Greg's early payday, his 10%, that would be 170 Bitcoin. It would just be, like building up his strong hands over the whole time. If he never takes it, that's cool. Like, good job. Good job not trying to trade, right? That would be pretty hard to not take, right? What did Bitcoin get up to? 69 million. So if I do 69 times 170, that's like $11 million, I think. So, like, but anyway, like, let's just see what it looks like that he never took that, right? So there's 170 waiting for him at the end of the drip, and then the other 90% of the 1,700 Bitcoin, that's 1,530 Bitcoin. And again, you spread that out over 180 months, and so that's 8.5 a month being dripped out. He could take it out weekly if he wanted to, but for this example, the amount of Bitcoin that are still time locked, dripping out week by week for Greg would be 527 Bitcoin. And that right there is worth 10.2 million, right? So even if Bitcoin went to zero and, Greg didn't get any bonuses from the impatience of others, which I believe he would have gotten a lot of. Greg did a 20,000x because he time locked in this scenario. And that's only looking at half of the 20 million that he's worth, really. I mean, really, he did 100,000x with what he sold monthly, and he did 100,000x with what's still there to drip, although he hasn't realized that price yet, right? So that's something now, isn't it? Now we have to be really careful when we're modeling what the fees could be, right? I personally don't see any downside to using this system. So it seems like there's only upside. You get better security, you get the benefits of time logging, and the fees are the cherry on top that in reality will probably attract the majority of the users, but that part's not guaranteed, right? What I'm trying to say is, if you participate, whether you get fees or not, you're still going to win. That's important. So, and I should have said only wrapped BTC is really compatible with Time Pays Me. Anyway, so if we go back to that 4% of emergency end stake penalties or bonuses, that gets paid out already in the system in HEX, less than 3 years in, right? We take that 4%. Well, we're only 20% through 3 years is only 1/5 of 15 years, right? And so you multiply by 5 to get, if that continued at the same rate, which is, again, not guaranteed, it's very, very speculative, but at the same time, like, if price appreciation does what we think it could, then a lot of people conservatively predict that fee will go up over time significantly. So, but let's just play it safe and let's just use the numbers that are before us, right? And let's use 4%. right? So multiply that by 5 to see what it would look like if it stayed constant. And all of a sudden, right, we're up to 20%. That's a big difference. Now for Greg, what does a 20% bonus look like? It looks like 340 Bitcoin that he gets all at the end of his term. When what we know about Bitcoin is on a big enough time frame, the longer you've held it, the better you've done, right? So those 340 Bitcoin might be more valuable in the future than they are even now. And they're sitting at $6.6 million just from Greg getting a 4% per year fee paid in Bitcoin, right? That's the key, paid in Bitcoin. So how many people are happy to pay like a 1% fee? They didn't even think about it. Try to use a fiat on-ramp, you're getting jacked for like multiple percent, some of which you see and some of which you don't, because they create a spread between the market price. So whenever you check the price of Bitcoin on Coinbase versus a decentralized exchange, well, let's say Ethereum, it's going to be a couple percent different because of what the centralized exchange is stealing from you. So this is the way that people are going to get incentivized to use the real superpower, which is time locking, right? I mean, think about it. Already, $6.6 million worth of Bitcoin is sitting there waiting for Greg because he did the right thing and didn't take his 10% out. That's pretty cool. And it doesn't matter, if Greg takes his 10% out, he's still not going to get all the rewards that he got until the actual end of his term. Super important. But yeah, so I think that this is going to be a game changer. If I had to do like a TLDR, too long, didn't read. Oh, I see Chrispy Man here. Awesome. Welcome. I just noticed you from behind another window. I hope you haven't been waiting long.
Nah, man, I just showed up.
Cool. I'm gonna adjust your mic to like automatically adjust itself. Maybe, it's my system. It's a little bit loud. Okay, cool. So I was just gonna say out loud what the too long didn't read version is, and then we can see what's up with you.
TLDR.
That's right. So sending money to your future self would be insanely profitable, but most people don't want to do it. Time Pays Me solves this with a weekly drip and potential massive bonuses from people taking an early payday. Also, it allows you to reverse a hack. And so I believe that once people understand this, that actually most Pulse Chain and Pulse X users are likely to adopt Time Pays Me, especially because over time, I mean, look at HEX, 75% of user-controlled coins are locked. That didn't happen by accident. It happened because everybody who didn't lock up their coins, they got left behind because the gains were too massive. And so I would expect a similar thing to happen in the sense that even if somebody wants to sit out and not use this system, at the end of the day, they might end up getting in or they might end up getting diluted compared to the price appreciation that other people are going to be able to command after 5 or 10 or 15 years. So it's really fascinating. Let me see. So I got the numbers here, and you all can go and read this. I would recommend it because I'm not always going to cover all of it. But yeah, I mean, already in under 3 years, HEX has 75% of user-controlled coins locked up for an average of 6.5, right? What happens when you take a very similar set of users and you give them a tool where they can time lock for twice as long in an asset that has a special relationship with HEX, right? Because a lot of people who are in Pulse Chain and Pulse X, they're hexagons. So if, it's not like it creates some competition between HEX and another coin. It actually creates a lot of synergy because the more people who are able to save themselves from themselves and store value, the higher the price can go, right? The more people time lock, the higher the price can go. So, and this is Time Pays Me. Also, it addresses like the scalability solution that's needed to address not only poverty, but also sudden wealth syndrome. So there's a really cool mechanic there, I think, that is perfectly illustrated by the case of Greg. And I think I described the rest of this already. To give a concrete example with some fun numbers that are a little bit memorable, the way that the drip would work is if you served a week of a 3-month term, then your drip has unlocked 7.77% of your coins because you waited 7.77% of the time. Jackpot. And then if you have another lock, if you have another term, basically within the same vault, it's fine. You can time lock any ERC or PRC20 crypto, and you can have multiple locks for each one of them if you want. Now, I wouldn't necessarily advise time locking certain coins. Like in HEX, you wouldn't want to use Time Pays Me necessarily because you wouldn't be getting, the interest and all the other benefits of time locking by getting TShares, right? So, and then with other, I wouldn't recommend time locking US dollar coin for 30 years either because of inflation. But anyway, so if you had another lock term that's 5 years, then from that stack, you would get 0.369% weekly from a 5-year lock. The same lock, you could let it build up. You don't have to take it out every week. And so that would be 1.6% monthly or 20% yearly, right? So the coins just pile up until you pay yourself. And if you're not in the Telegram group, I'm going to stop basically letting people in to the Smart Vault Me one, which is the high signal to noise that I'm going for. Time Pays Me Telegram, that's going to get shilled for years to come. Smart Vault Me Telegram is there's almost 1,000 people in there, and I'll probably stop talking about it at 1,000, and then you'll just be a founding member. So if you didn't already get in there, get in there. This is going to help you with the ups and downs in crypto as well, because crypto goes up and down too often, right? 95%. I already talked about reversing a hack. I already talked about getting paid by impatience. I made a really ugly mock-up for my devs just to get the idea across of what it might look like. Not saying that it will look anything like that, but I needed something. Yeah, so dripping is a good thing, I think, to balance out, to make sure the price doesn't run away and everybody feels left out. Time Pays Me, I think when we zoom out, is the first token agnostic proof of weight protocol. You lock and hold your own crypto that drips back to you over time, and you're earning small fees from the impatience of others, and that can multiply exponentially. So instead of the classic choice, do you want 1 marshmallow now or 2 marshmallows later? Now the choice gets to be, would you rather have more crypto now and more crypto later? Yeah, of course. So I think the majority of people in Pulse Chain and Pulse X, I think they'll adopt this because they want to FOMO the mad gains from the impatience fee. They'll start to see the psychological gains of having more structure within your portfolio. And then also being able to reverse a hack is a big one people tell me. I'm like, I'm over it. That seems like pretty basic thing that we needed that is possible now. But Chrispy, man, what's going on?
What's up there, Maddie?
Man, this went from like a cool idea, something that I would use, to now something that I think is pretty historic when it comes to the incentives that is going to drive adoption here. I know that you've been doing a talk on another live stream, and it sounded like you were up to something really cool before you were able to join. So what do I need to catch you up on?
I've been listening a little bit. I have the gist of it. I wasn't aware of the name change. I like it.
Thank you. Me too.
Time pays me. I'm listening. I see some comments. So everybody learns in different ways, and it's repetitive, right? And so, meaning the more times I see something, probably the more it'll stick, right, later on.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in practice makes perfect. Okay. And what do I mean by that? I think that applies to what we do with our finances, as well as a lot of other parts of our lives. We talk about delayed gratification and all the rest. And hell, I'm not the best at it, but I try really hard. But the only way I've gotten better has been to practice. And I kind of I'll throw this to you. Everything you're describing, minus the security part, right, is probably something most of us have thought about, right? You're thinking about your portfolio, like it would really make sense to not pull it all out at one time. It probably makes really good sense not to sell at the bottom. It probably makes sense to go out for a longer period of time. But human emotions are such, right? It is hard to manage that. And I think time pays me is kind of like a set of guardrails with the added security function to, lock yourself in. It's really a self-motivation thing, right? Like you got to actively decide, I want to lock up my tokens in this protocol for this reason. So it's very positive in that way.
Yeah, it is. Going back to like the emotions that you're describing and like the thought process, the difference between what we know we should do versus what we end up doing. I think that before I traveled to the Ukraine this last time, was about a year ago, and I was thinking about HEX and how cool it is for people to time lock their money, and then trying to explain it to people. It made me realize that it's not so simple as like we know what's best and then we don't do it because of inflation. So inflation actually makes it crazy to save in too long of a time period, right? Because the price of everything goes up. And so the experience that most people have had, whether it's conscious for them or probably not, it's probably subconscious, is part of the hesitance to time lock is the knowledge that you will lose in the currency that is your unit of account. Your psychological unit of account is the dollar for most people, or their whatever currency they're using to buy their food with. So because crypto is not part of the unit of account yet for even most people in crypto, we can use that to our advantage here, right? Because when we look at the principal in dollar terms versus the price appreciation of any tiny little fee that you get out of the system, that's enough to be a giant motivator, I believe. Like Richard Hart, he got a lot of people's attention by saying HEX can do a 10,000x. in 2.5 years, and then backing that up with facts and with just an insane amount of knowledge, right? That was very impressive. So yeah, I think it's going to take practice even for everybody. Well, I was going to say it's going to take practice for everybody to figure this out, but I think it's actually going to be really easy for people to figure out. And that's another reason why I'm so excited about it, is because if people know that they're going to be missing out on a lot of gains from Pulse Chain and Pulse X because they're not using Time Pays Me, I think they'll want to use it.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's the narrative, right? That's the narrative that you want to focus on, to really create a call to action to lock up those tokens, right? And then when I say practice, I don't mean practice. I didn't mean specifically practice with your software, but methodologies like this, right, is what I was
Yeah,
thinking. And in fact, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, right?
it shouldn't be all or nothing.
All right, so somebody could come to the protocol, to the contract, and say I want to lock up 10%, do 10%, 5%, whatever you feel comfortable doing, and then add to it or subtract later as time goes on, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I think that people will do that as well.
So only the people who I think only the people who really did get into the staking with Hex kind of truly get it. And I don't mean to be
Well, that's
derogatory to anybody
no.
else. It's just, I mean, until you have tons of money on paper locked up that you can't get to, you don't. I don't think. I mean, it's easy to talk about it, but it's like everybody knows, but until you experience that and you're like, you couldn't sell. Of course, you couldn't sell at the high, all right, but you couldn't sell at the low either if you're still staked. So, I mean, there are ramifications to it, and I know you hear a lot of stuff from people, but I guess my point is that there probably would have been a lot of times that stakers would have sold if they weren't staked.
Yeah,
That's it.
were you here for the example of Greg?
I caught the tail end of Greg.
So if he had, so I modeled out if he had used Time Pays Me with his
Right, I
Bitcoin,
saw that. Yeah.
and he would have almost the same amount of dollar terms, even though he's 2/3 of the way through. So he's got $10.5 million and $10.5 million worth of Bitcoin, and those fees are performing in a way that is truly incredible. Like if we take the data from the emergency end stake penalties, which is like conservative in my opinion.
Sure.
So yeah, that's what I like so much, is that going back to what you just said about people always timing the market wrong. When you use a drip, you just perform so well. I mean, you really do. It's incredible.
Oh, sure. Oh, well, there's some people that will hear this and go, wait a minute, you know what? I can pick the top, and maybe they can. Maybe they're the one person or the 1% that can do it. But for the rest of us, I don't know, a
Yeah.
long history of holding until it goes down, and not being on a solid, you know, um, take profit plan, or even have an idea of when that's going to be. Just being completely open ended. Because I think I don't know. I know what I do. I'll look at even when it was you're at your highs. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to sell that because it's going to go higher, right? So, I mean, was that the right decision? Yeah, I think for a 5-year time frame, it was the right decision. For a 2-year time frame, maybe not the right decision. But I think these are all tools. What you're talking about, locking up the tokens or the coins, are all tools to help you get through those periods, right? Part of one of your planning tools.
Well, and it creates the future that you want to see. where the coins are more scarce in the here and now. And so even if half the people don't get it at first and they want to play their trading games, there's always going to be somebody to take coins from them on the trading side of things. 70% of traders lose. There's always going to be new things invented for the people, like more advanced scams and new tokens that come and go. There's lots of ways that people just holding liquid can lose their coins, especially if they feel like they're a genius. So we have to make people feel like a genius for locking them up, not for selling them short term. And then the price goes up higher. And then everybody wins more. Even the people paying the 1% fee of their principal, they are getting the benefit of having the price held up by everybody else who's using the system. So, it's a pretty sweet deal all around. So yeah, that's the idea. And then, you'll like this. So here's the part I still mess up. Okay. Dollar cost averaging in is not always easy for me. Like sometimes I get it right. Sometimes I do it. Sometimes I don't. Like if I'm dollar cost averaging out of something else, that makes me way better at doing it. But if I'm just taking dollars out of my bank account and doing something with them, I don't have a good method for that. With Time Pays Me, I could take $1,000. I could put it on a time lock for a month. And then every week I could go buy whatever coin I'm trying to buy. And so that would give me the missing piece, right? For my own ability to be able to still be able to choose, but to just have more structure involved, right?
Yeah, that would be you're saying to utilize that that payout to go buy and DCA into the other token. Yeah.
That'd be good for a lot of our onboards too. Some of them could pick a 3-month time horizon or a 6-month time horizon, because you can time lock USDC. So you time lock USDC, right? And then it trips out weekly, and you can come back to it monthly if you want. You don't have, and the whole system's free if you never take your 10% out early. And so it's really cool as a tool, not just to dollar cost average out of a coin by dripping it to yourself, but you can dollar cost average in by dripping yourself the USDC that you need. Crypto Dave, this will be a killer app. Great use case. Lots of exclamation marks. Thanks, man. And thanks for being a founding member of the Telegram as well.
Yeah, it's a huge tool. It'd be cool. Put it to use.
And one thing that somebody out there might be able to help me with, it'd be really useful if somebody could help me figure out if the numbers that I'm working with from HEX daily stats on the number of HEX that are paid out in penalties from the early end stake penalty per day, if that is the part that goes to the OA included or not. And I don't think it really changes any of my conclusions because of how small that fee is compared to a fee that is still very small to people. But so what I'm saying is, because the Time Pays Me fee is actually higher at 1% even, and that it might be used up to 4 times in each person's term, or it might be use 0. But the point is that just cutting from 4% is what the APY has been on on your emergency end stake penalties since day 3. That's still a significant number,
Sure.
in my opinion. Like still 2%, and now over a 15 or 30 year term, you're getting you're still getting 10% instead of 20% in 15 years based on that. So it's completely unpredictable what people will do from one perspective when it comes to like, what will the fees be looking like? But at the same time, I mean, you could say it's totally unpredictable that miners are going to mine blocks or validators are going to validate blocks. Like, but at the end of the day, just so we don't have to deal with the example of zero, the first day of Pulse Chain Mainnet, I'm gonna take $1 and I'm gonna put it into Time Pays Me in a separate account, and I'm gonna take the 10% so that we don't ever have to talk about like, zero, like the payout's zero. So it might be close to zero, or it might be an 18,000x on your principal. When you force multiply it by the price appreciation, because you're getting paid in tokens instead of dollars. So,
hey, going back to your question, I'm pretty sure that the penalty number is the total penalties for the day, which includes both the portion that goes to the OA as well as the good accounting penalties. But I do think that what you said is probably accurate. I don't think it matters, right? I mean, it does if you're looking at those numbers specifically, but it gives you a kind of order of magnitude.
Yeah.
Understanding what people are willing to give up because the person gives it up. I mean, then regardless of whether half of it goes to the OA, they still lose all of it. So
and like, well, yeah, I mean, it depends how far they are in their term for the emergency end stake.
True, but this whatever penalty is paid. Whatever it is, the total amount comes out of their stake, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So regardless, so for your purposes of figuring out what behaviors will be, whatever number you divine from that would still be the same, I think.
Yeah. And I particularly think of people who like are tortured by price appreciation, right? So like, we could take the example of like Joe Hexotic, who like, he has openly expressed, before on live streams and stuff, like, what if he's halfway through his term and he's gotten a 1 million X and now he's hovering his finger over the early end stake button, like starting to hit himself, right? And it's like, that's a real thing. Mm-hmm. And so while I still think that HEX is designed perfectly in a lot of ways, especially because, look, like a lot of the money has come from hacks in emergency end stake, like that, maybe like 25% of it, if I'm like guessing, and so, that's a good thing that didn't get dumped on the market, because at the end of the day, you can't consider any of these incentives alone. You always have to understand, how does it loop people's behavior back into price appreciation, right? People in HEX who get paid to hold up the price, like that causes more price appreciation for them at times. And so, but I think for people like, for the person who would be tortured in HEX by price appreciation, Time Pays Me really stops them from hating themselves, because you can take the 10% 4 times while your drip is just cutting in half to pay it back. And the math on that works out to where you're waiting 22% of your time in order for the drip to pay back your 10%. Like, and everything, like it depends it depends what the most elegant way we put it on the blockchain. It might be like, it might be your early payday is 10%, and like you get, and 1% gets taken out for fees and rewards, or it might be like it's 10% and then 1% gets taken out. We haven't made a final decision on that yet, but the bottom line is, like, at the end of the day, you're waiting about 20 or 22% of the time in order for your drip to pay that back. And then all of a sudden, you're getting rewards again unless you take another 10% early payday. And so it kind of puts people into a situation where even if they do the wrong thing, the system after a while, after making them wait, is going to default them back into something that's better for them, something that's rewarding, right? It's a carrot and a stick relationship.
Yep.
And
Yep.
when you have relationships between different dynamics within the system, whether it's the people who are holding up the price by time locking their coins, or whether it's people who are paying essentially everybody else to do that while they're taking theirs out early and getting a better price appreciation because there's more scarcity in the here and now. I think there's a lot of ways, where it just is going to click for a lot of people and, offer them that peace of mind. So that's like the hidden aspect of this is a certain amount of mental health benefit, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of us aspire to get into a situation where you don't have to put as much energy into thinking about this,
Mm.
and so that you can spend your energy doing other things that maybe are more valuable to you and your family, to community, whatever it is. But yeah, I look forward to that more, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was just, I was pretty fearful, man, like about Pulse Chain and Pulse X coming before I would have a way to time lock them, because there's no reason for me to change what's working, right? Hex
Mhm.
is working for me. I've got a ladder. Like, I'm retired. Life is good. It's really good.
Mhm.
And so, I want that to be accessible to more people. And so, you know, I also think that if people use Time Pays Me with other cryptos outside of the RH ecosystem, I think it could help to lead them to Hex in the end, um, because Hex is different enough, and this is going to be closer to what people already like, that they know that they like, because you can use your coin. If you're so right about the long-term prospect of your coin, then why wouldn't you use this? And so then I think it'll lead people down the rabbit hole of trustless APY, and then they'll be so close to Hex already that they get led to the right place. But nobody's getting led to the wrong place with this either, because of the overlap between the users of Pulse Chain, Pulse X, and Hexagons. It's like, what would you say the overlap is in terms of like dollars out of the 1.7 billion that went into Pulse Chain? My guess is like 90% of that was probably Hex gains. Would you say like 20%, 50%, 1%, 100%? Like,
Man, it'd be so hard to nail that down. People who weren't here don't know, but you know, it sounds ridiculous to say it, but I think right before the announcement, what was it, about 3 cents, right? So we were sitting right about 3 cents or so, right? And a bunch of us had been DCing in, since below a penny, and it had gotten up to that 3 cent kind of range. And anyways, I distinctly remember starting to set some funds aside to do, to go in, and then depending on how you did with Pulse, you got somewhere between 12 and 20 cents, right? So yeah, so for the people who had been banking early, yeah, maybe they were 75 to 90% of that. And what percentage of the overall were those people? I don't know. I don't know, because we also had a ton of people come in too. So and a lot of people, even if they were hexagons, didn't necessarily follow the buy hex and sacrifice it either. I mean, everything I sacrificed wasn't hex. mean, it might have been better if it happened that way, but I had legacy stuff I wanted to send, so I wanted to do that.
Mhm.
So I didn't go. But anyways, yeah, it's a mix. But you could probably say 60%. I would rough. It's more than half, probably. Might even be higher than that came from gains. If that
Yeah,
was your
yeah.
question.
So yeah, and it's enough, I think, to where um people aren't going to get jealous of, like, pulse chain people doing so well with time locking too, because um it's extending that superpower in a way that doesn't. I mean, there have been a lot of vampire attacks. People have tried to copy Hex. In this case, we were very careful because we're not reaching for anything. We're not launching a sacrifice. There is no token for this. It's like, it's just what's going to be good for people and what's going to be good for the most number of people to win. That's the answer to crypto. That's how crypto is going to get mass adopted is, I think in a way, the more like, I think in a way, when I look at these bear markets and stuff, it's not just the macroeconomics, but it's really that reflexivity in crypto. The reflexivity is what kills you in terms of people wanting to keep participating and put in more money. So if you make ways popular for people to be slower buying in and slower selling, that literally does what the function of money is supposed to do, which is store value over time. Time locking is one of the 4 properties of money. It's just now we have a way to do it electronically. And Hex running up 18,000x in 656 days. It's a powerful example of how insane that can be. And then you start to think like, well, if it had done that in a little bit longer time period, maybe you would have had less reflexivity on the downside, basically.
Maybe.
You still would have had a bubble, but it might not have been as bad. And so, not to say that time pays me like solves completely the issue of reflexivity, but I think it's just another tool in the toolbox of, you've got Hex as your main store of value, but as long as you're going to have a network on top of it, and that network is deflationary, you might as well make that valuable too. If it's the same people holding it, it amplifies Hex really, because if Pulse Chain is so valuable that you don't have to sell very much, then you also have to sell even less Hex if that's your primary store of value. So at the end of the day, I think it's a win-win for like new people, poor people, rich people. I mean, you get even the 1%. I didn't realize this until I heard it the other day, and it makes sense. Even the 1% churns a lot in terms of like the world's wealthiest people. Like, that's interesting. You wouldn't have as much churn. You wouldn't have everybody, kind of like making a fortune and then losing it, making a fortune and then losing it. That kind of tells you a little bit about the instability and like the risk tolerance of the economy. Like, when inflation is so high, people have to take greater risks in order to keep up. And then the people who are the tip of the bubble, they're the ones who are losing it all as well, right? The most. So that's why you're getting such a high churn on the 1%. And so if it's whales selling is more important to the entire system than a small person selling, right? If you can help a whale spread out over a longer time period, that has a really strong effect. But then you also still want a way to help people who are like, like Greg, as far as I know, is still working a software job, like a regular 9 to 5, even though he bought the right coin. The coin that appreciated the highest in human history, and he bought it at 6 cents, and he didn't make it. So
That was a close call.
yeah.
It's like that. It's like that dream you had where you had the winning lottery ticket and you lost it. Couldn't prove that you owned it.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
It's exactly like that.
That's terrible. Well, unfortunately, it's hard. Uh, yeah, I mean, I think again, that's why having discussions like this and learning like this is important. Um, it's not for everybody, but I think it's important because if you're looking for those types of asymmetrical gains, first you got to believe that they can happen, and you got to be
Mhm.
looking for it, and then you have to understand how it would work. And I know plenty of people outside of crypto um, that they play a scalpers game. They play day trading kind of ish, but they make 5%, 10%. With us, that's kind of ridiculous, right? 5%, 10%, but they make 5 or 10%. They take their money off the table, right? They would never. Those guys would never be the ones that would be like, I'm gonna buy Tesla at $2 and I plan to hold it for 20 years, right? Because if they did, right, and there are some that have, but not anybody I know. Well, I know some guys later that did that, but my point is whatever asset it is, if you don't have a plan to hold it, you'll never realize the gains or the asymmetrical gains, right? Because you just won't have it at the end, and it's natural, right? I mean, unfortunately, I've been live long enough to see Apple at $4, right, and Amazon at nothing. So, I mean, so those
But
those types of things.
could we get those guys to put $102 into Pulse Chain and have them lock it? Would they do that? Just a drop in the bucket.
Oh, of course, right.
Yeah.
Well, can you get them to do it? I don't know. I work hard trying to onboard people. You know, as you know, right? If you're talking to no coiners, man, I don't know, just as likely to get ghosted forever. Bringing up cryptocurrency is a serious thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of goes
I
over like a fart in church.
yeah.
Sometimes. Huh?
Well, of course, onboarding is a really important puzzle to me, and I think Time Pays Me will be able. I think it'll have a function built in for people to be able to gift it the vault, and then actually make it so easy for somebody on the other end of that, because now you don't even have to give them the whole security pitch. You can just make yourself their backup while actually giving them full control. So
Yep. Yep.
like stays true to crypto. There's a solution that we have for like not making these tradable, which like people know I am adamant about. So there you'll be happy to hear there's no contradiction there. Like if you're
I was
gonna
just I was just going to suggest it, but
yeah, well, if you're gonna sign up for Mad Gains, then I don't want you to be able to shoot yourself in the foot,
uh,
And Randy Hilarski does a really good job of pointing that out every time people bring up tradable stakes. He's like, "That's good for you, but for me," he says, "I know that I, don't want the burden." He says he knows he'll sell it if he can, and so he prefers to use legacy staking for his HEX.
yeah, I think I just heard him say that last week.
Mm.
Again,
Yeah, he says it
uh,
often.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, quite often I think a lot about this whole legacy planning thing, right? Being able to, not even just legacy planning, but giving, right? It's difficult. It's difficult even to figure out how you could send somebody crypto, right? I mean,
Mm.
I just can't grab some random person in my family and say, hey, I'm going to send you some hex, right? I mean, I did that, but hey, it took some startup capital to kind of figure that out. And I don't mean in money, I mean in time. Um, so one of the things we talked about a while ago was Gnosis Safe, you know,
Mm.
maybe creating, there's some people that feel this way, creating this has happened in like the HEX Dream channel, right? Where you would do, maybe set up a ladder and you gift a ladder, right?
Mhm.
So one of the ways you can do that would be Gnosis Safe, right? That would be an example of something you could do. Be able to transfer that type of thing. So that your contract is going to be interesting that way too, because there's some different things you can do. They're related, not exactly a substitution for it, but this idea that I don't have to maintain ownership of the keys by myself, and I can give you, whoever you is, that opportunity to participate, you know, and we don't have to worry as much that if something happens, with the security, because I am the backup. It's kind of going along the lines of what you said.
Yeah, and rarely I've covered, like, on my channel, I was gifting staked HEX, on the first Christmas of HEX, because I was using cold storage coins that ended up working out beautifully for the intended purpose, because they have a copy, it's fireproof. I have a copy. They got something physical. I didn't even have to set up get them to set up a MetaMask. I could do it myself. And so I staked the hex and gave it to him, and now I can manage the airdrops. So I don't have an impossible job of all of, because I've got um, lots of onboards that I've set up in that way or a similar way that I keep track of, and it's way easier to have it that way. With Gnosis Safe, um,
Complex.
it's complex, and
I
then
just, yeah,
airdrops more complex.
yeah, I just did a Gnosis transaction today, and yeah, it's been a couple months to get back in there, figure it out, which wallet's which,
Yeah.
which one am I using,
Yep.
all that stuff. Which button do I push? It's not exactly, an app on my phone, so to speak. Push this button by.
Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the more ways, I don't know that time pays me would be a good way to manage other people's airdrops, but at least the fact that you could gift somebody and be true to the principles of crypto by not having to have a multiple signature, just to have any kind of like security theater. Like, in a way, I think that is like just a really crude solution to a really easy problem. Like, um, but
Yeah,
I'm pretty harsh on other projects.
well, my airdrops have been getting airdrops lately. So I
Yeah,
gotta,
have they?
they're like,
What do you
yeah,
got?
they're like multiplying, right? Well, I guess they're forks and all this other stuff, but I,
Oh
I
yeah,
need I need to set up a ledger, just like a written ledger with maps and crap on it, so I just keep track of everything, right?
yeah,
All the different addresses and what's happening.
yeah.
I found $500 today. I was like, it was my notice thing, because I didn't, this is now I know how it happens, right?
That's
I'm like,
great.
oh, I got to go to this wallet. It's like, is that my Ethereum? I guess so. Yeah, I guess it's mine. It's in my account. But I had lost track of that address. I used to think I was pretty good at it, but
Did Saker do like a payout recently, or did I imagine?
no,
Could that
no.
be?
On so the Gnosis I was describing was not
Oh,
non-staking
okay.
related, but there's a new airdrop that came out, right, for Gnosis Safe, called Safe.
Yeah.
Details you can go look up. I'm waiting on my staker apps for them to implement the push one button and claim and delegate. So I'll do that then. But that came out recently.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I got in there with my first Gnosis Safe wallet, and of course delegated to Stake Wrap. But I don't know, just now it's what are they trying to be like HEX? They just airdropped me something that's time locked and doesn't have a value yet and all that kind of stuff. Like, come on, I want the money already. But I guess that's okay.
Gotta have patience, right?
I know, yeah. Maybe
Gotta
it's a good thing.
wait for the market to come. Yeah.
But I guess my point is, like, I haven't rushed into like claiming for all the other wallets that I've got people set up with for that, because it's doesn't need to be done until the end of the year.
Yeah, that's an interesting question to yeah, it doesn't have to be done at the end of the year. And I'm not, because I never did it in the first place. I'm not really interested in taking my keys and importing them anywhere else, even to a ledger at the moment, for my staker up. But I guess I could do that. That's the process, right?
Oh yeah.
So I didn't want to do this. I just have left it with staker apps. I'll wait for that button to come. Yeah, where I'll just be able to go on the app and do it, and then not have to go through the potential security risks of moving and migrating, whether it's self-inflicted or otherwise. But I was going to say, this is with the onboards. Here's a good question for you. I won't name them all, but I got a list of like 4 or 5 different projects that I'm aware of that either have or are going to be airdropping more and more tokens to sacrificers and hexicans, all this other stuff. And it's a job just trying to keep everybody informed. I'm not sure. I mean, of course, I'm going to let them know and have, but depending on the any 10 group of 10 people, some of them are interested, some of them aren't interested. I mean, how are you handling that?
I
I try not to push the rope too hard.
Yeah. What I've done is I've taken a learning approach, and I've got my onboard separated into like lots of different categories of like, I still prefer to gift them something and then manage that for them. And then if they want to get in on, if they want to get in on the action, then they will, and they do. It's like, what are they ready for? But when it comes to notifying people, yeah, it does seem kind of rude for me to be like, hey, I don't have time to like go over this individually with you, but here's the instructions. And then I watch in horror as the days pass up to the deadline, and I can see that they're not doing it. Right. Um, but I think so. It is, look, it's a sad day to me whenever I see an onboard pass up, in some cases, over $1,000 in airdrops because they're not with it. But I don't know, like, it, to me, it's very rewarding, and it like comforting to know that, I mean, with people I gifted $100 of HEX to before the big payday, that's a lot of HEX now. I mean, it's like, it's doing pretty well, right? It's up 10x at least, even though we're down 10x. So plus the airdrops, and some of the airdrops on those small wallets have been the same size as the value of all the HEX on there.
Yeah,
Believe
I
it
know.
or not. And so
I saw that. Yeah.
when I told Richard that, he was like a little bit surprised. And I was like, yeah, like, those little one TShare, gifts from back in the day are crushing it with all the airdrops.
Yeah, it's
And
pretty
then
cool.
and then I manage those for pretty much all the people I gifted to, and it just, dollar cost average out of whatever's airdropped and buy HEX, and that's the play.
Hey, it's been a winning approach,
Also sacked from each of their wallets and stuff, like that's which got them the weight token airdrop, and then they'll get more weight tokens
Wait,
whenever they do
there's
their
more.
second half. Yeah.
Wait, there's more.
Um,
Richard Hart did call the top of the day. He did.
so did Steph.
I'm watching the notes scroll by. I don't know if you're doing that or just automatic. But
I am. Yeah. Steph called the top on the day and pinned it to his Twitter.
yeah, I heard you talking about that.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, I called the top on the day too.
Did you?
Yeah. But I had a lot of help. So because I was listening to other people to talk. Well, it doesn't always apply, but if you there's certain averages you can follow with the golden ratio, and I follow those. And anyways, long story short, when I'm not a TA guy, right? Barely, but I can see when it drops out of the parabola because it's pretty clear, you know. So when it goes over the line, and under the line, then And so, anyways, able to track that pretty closely, the cross. And Richard called it right because you can clearly see it. So
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. There's no doubt in my mind. Now, what about the bottom?
yeah, bottom's always. I don't know. For me, careful, too many bottom jokes will come out. But for me, it's really a matter of watching to see what happens. It's going to always take some time to confirm, but I'm watching the 111-day moving average pretty closely, and that's starting to curl up for HEX, and that doesn't mean anything. It only means something when it crosses back over, some other averages, and doesn't get rejected. So this will play out over weeks, months. Hopefully I hope we're counting the bottom from last April. Meaning the bear starting last April and not November. But it kind of seems like we're probably going to be about a year out from last November. Pretty consistent with what people think or saying. We'll see. You just won't know. We'll know 2 months later and we'll go, that was the bottom. Okay. How do we know that? Because it didn't go back down again. All right. Can't do it. You can't do it without watching, waiting. Otherwise, it would have been really smart earlier, right? Avoid all this bear stuff.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Well, it'll be
that's
interesting to see how much money is sitting on the sidelines within HEX, waiting for the bottom. And
it will be interesting. We'll see how much talk is talk, and how much is real. I know I FOMO'd more than once, and I'm very aware that there's not much difference at $1 between 2 cents and 3 cents.
So I've been thinking a couple times today, like, should I tell everybody what the best Zen strategy is? Because then all the people who know that, all the people who like are with my way of thinking, all the people who like are going to hear the answer and be like, duh, that's obviously it. They will be free to move on, to stop wasting their time on what is the best Zen strategy, because I see a lot of people wasting time on that. I was almost going down that path, and then
you're gonna take a stab at it, or do you want me to take a stab at it first?
I want you to go first.
I bet you we have the similar idea. All right. So first off, I mean, I'm in love with HEX, right? So don't get me wrong, I'm not cheating. It kind of feels that way in a way, right? But ultimate goal, right, is to bring it, and that we're so intertwined with that community anyways. I mean, just how this whole thing rolled out, right? But regardless, there's an opportunity to actually bring thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of other people into the HEX sphere through that lens. So let's wait and see. This is what occurs to me, Maddie. AA. I'm going to treat it, and you may not think the same way. I'm going to treat it just like the adoption amplifier. And to the extent that I can participate, I am going to go stake. Actually, I'll mint first, but I'll do my claim and mint probably on some sort of extended monthly ladder approach. And as those come up and I need to mint, or those dates come up and I run out of places to mint tokens, what I'll probably do is I'll probably end up in a situation where I'm doing some sort of a rolling monthly stake ladder out 1,000 days. That would be my optimum, because what's happened is this: when I look at all those numbers and whatnot, man, I get the sense that early's better than later, but I don't know if there's much difference between day one, day two, and there's some purists who say, oh, no, the math is, yeah, I get it. But I don't know if 1 versus 2 versus 7 versus 14, 13, 12, I'll just spread it out. I'll handle it like a DCA. Anyways, that's my thought, is to do it that way. Get as most exposure as I'm willing to pay for, because I'm paying for this and
Yeah.
gas, right? Get as much exposure as I'm willing to put into it, and just spread it out with the idea of creating a rolling type of a stake. All right, I'll stop talking.
That's good. That's good. That's good. So the optimum strategy, I believe, is, and first I'll say, what's the big picture? So the big picture is, this is a proof of weight disguised as a proof of participation, which, cool. It's like the whole idea is you take Bitcoin in its early days when you can mint it for free with a little bit of electricity and try to recreate that situation by allowing people to use a little bit of gas, basically Ethereum fees, in order to mint something. And then, yeah, it's like kind of ripping off HEX in some ways when it comes to the proof of weight. But
to me, it seems like it's HEX without the OA. That's my, the parameters are a little different, but that's how it feels.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, mechanically it might be similar to that, but I think there's a lot more going on. And people are out there in our community talking about writing bots so they can claim more, not understanding the relationship between, you could spend a lot and then it doesn't work, right? Because you didn't have the right balance between new people being able to get in and have something, basically. Like, the idea is, if people are going to abuse the system and they're going to get 1 million times more wallets than the new people, and then they're going to pay dearly for that. Or, I mean, you could write a bot to just like use a bunch of super low gas. So maybe you're not even paying what somebody who is less experienced is paying. But you got to remember, like, if you don't give those new people a good deal coming in, like, then they're not going to have a good experience with crypto, and you're not going to end up getting as much as you could if this system had been used responsibly. So anyway, like all that to say, if you believe that if you believe that there is risk in spending gas, like, that's an expense, and so you don't want that to exponentially get away from you in a way that's different than the exponential curve that Zen is presenting you with, then the ideal play is to make 2 wallets each day. That's the ideal play, from like, you're not going to waste a bunch of Ethereum, versus if people are doing more than that, like, then they're putting a lot at risk that they could be able to buy the tokens cheaper in the end, I think.
Well, I think that's going to be something I would look at immediately too. again, go back to AA type of thinking, right? Okay, we start kicking this thing off. I get you, because I thought about doing some shorts, some mediums, some longs, clearly going out as long as possible is
Yeah.
better in that
Doing
sense.
2 a day and going out as long as possible. And then because as long as possible increases over time, it kind of sets you up as a ladder anyway.
Yeah, it
Um,
can do that.
So that's the best. Concisely, that's what I meant by the best
Yeah,
strategy is like,
but don't forget also, with any address, after you mint, you can turn around and send that or have that sent to a different address and then reclaim on that same address. So there's some efficiencies you can kind of build into it. So it's not like an ever expanding universe of addresses. Um, yeah.
well,
And then
it's, yeah,
the other thing with the AA, so here's the thing, right? It could cost me $2 to participate, which is okay. That's reasonable. Or it could be $50. Right? Depending on how many of us all try to jam in transactions at one time. And it's not lost on me that this is economic energy that isn't getting funneled into HEX, right?
Mm.
So that's also problematic in my thinking. But it is what it is. They're launching it this week. It's going to go. People are going to do it. And I'm going to look at that and I go, if I do one of these things, it costs me X amount per token to do it myself. And there's somebody who just minted a whole bunch of it and they're selling it for less. I'm going to arbitrage it. I probably would just buy it if I really wanted it. If I really wanted it, I'd just buy it.
That's
Right?
a good way of looking at it. Yeah.
Why spend it? Why spend the money? Now, how that did screw me on the AA, which we don't have here, is that of course I lost my referrals. So, but that's besides the point. Because when
You lost them
what
how?
well, because I was buying Uniswap rather than self-referring myself.
But that was arbed though in the end, I think. Like,
yeah. I mean, you could make some arguments about that. But I mean,
I certainly will. You didn't miss out as bad like the whole time.
only if I did a really good job of buying, which I'm pretty sure I did. But that's besides the point, right? For this topic, we don't need to go down that direction. But yeah, I mean, I'll just watch it and say your approach is not a bad approach. I thought about maybe trying to be one of the liquid guys, just to play that a little bit. So
Yeah. It'll be curious to see, like, is it $2 to claim, $20 to claim? I think that'll make it easier for me to make my decision of how often I do it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I forfeit all my I forfeit some sort of interest when I do my my stakes there, if I do stakes with them. So if I end my stake early, I don't get the interest, but I get my principals. There's some rules that are similar. And then and let me tell you though, people complain about our late stake 1% per week after the 2 weeks. You got 7 days. You better be Johnny on the spot. Day one, which is another reason kind of thinking, I probably don't want to be married to a computer,
Yeah, all your vacations are now canceled for the rest of the
Yeah.
time.
I mean, even you think of it this way, even if you set it up that you had to be, go end something one day every month, can you guarantee you can be there that day? I mean, things happen. I mean, it's, you got to be able to end it on time. No significant penalties. But anyway, I would like to see us shape this whole thing to bring more awareness to Pulse, which it will because it'll be on Pulse Chain. Bring more awareness to HEX, which it will because you can't possibly talk about it without being exposed to HEX. It's almost no way.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see with this group of people how it does, because like I think although I can't think of a specific example, this probably isn't the first time somebody's tried something like this where you're doing a proof of participation. I mean, maybe combining it with a proof of weight is a little bit novel, which is cool. But at the end of the day, I think it's yet to be proven whether that works. It's not, you're not repeating Bitcoin necessarily. So
yeah. Well, I feel a little guilty even talking about it because I feel pretty strongly about it. In fact, to the point that I was like, well, maybe if I allocate $500 in gas, I need to also make sure I spend $500 on buying more HEX.
Mm,
You know,
there you go.
kind of keep myself level. It's kind of like
Yeah.
when I buy my girlfriend flowers. I also bring some home for the wife.
Ah, there you go.
That was a joke, by the way. I say it low enough that my wife's in the other room. I won't get hit. So no DV, no DV. We're good.
Yeah. I am behind Smart Vault Me. It's me. And I have
It's
2 devs that kick ass more than a whole 100 devs that don't kick ass and distract each other. So it's a
I only
dream
know
team.
one of them. I like him. I don't know what the other one is.
Yeah.
You don't have to dock someone. Just saying.
I might have him on the show sometime, Yeah. Already made something cool for Hex that people use, but I won't narrow it down any more than that. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So people, they all wanted to know about Zen. That's fine. We had a good side note about that. Which token will be used to pay the APY? Great question. In Time Pays Me, you can time like any cryptocurrency, and it's that cryptocurrency that you pay a 1% fee on your principal whenever you take an early payday. And so the rewards that you're getting from other people who took their 10% out whenever you kept your 10% in, that's paid in whatever the token is that you're time locking. So the chat might have been going back and forth between discussing Zen and Time Pays Me. Well, and it depends. Pretty much for free can make a big difference in the blockchain depending on what the gas fees are, right? So if it's $20 because the gas isn't very efficient versus $2, that to me that's a huge difference if I'm talking about making a couple wallets a day for 100 days or something. There's no EES penalty like Hex either. You just lose your yield, not your principal, if you were to EES. I'm not seeing now. I'm confused as to which project we're talking about, but when it comes to Time Pays Me, I can tell you that the way it's designed is that you can only take 10% out, and you can't nuke your entire stake because it's going to 90% of your stake is going to drip out over time, one way or another. And then the rewards that you get those are always at the end. So you could run into a situation where, because of price appreciation, you're over halfway through your term and you have more than 100% of what your principal was in USD. That would actually be pretty easy to happen because of how the system's designed. Seamlessly weaves his therapy expertise into crypto experience. Thank you, Crypto Dave.
Weaving the fabric. Weaving.
That's right. So what's the penalty for late claims with Zen?
After 7 days, 100%. Right?
That's what I thought.
I think it applies to both. I guess I don't know. Go read their white paper. Otherwise, I give bad information on it. Thank God they have a calculator.
You're out there watching this on replay or live. I just dropped the thread, which tells you everything that you need to know about Time Pays Me as it stands. I really appreciate it if you like and retweet it, because even though I think everybody will adopt it once they hear about it, they have to hear about it. And so, it benefits you, whether you're going to use the protocol or not to tell other people about it, because these are people who are going to time lock their coins and make your coins more valuable. So it doesn't matter whether you want the rewards because you're participating or you want everybody else to lock up their coins so yours are worth more. That's why I need your help getting the word out. And yep, that's the call to action for today. Smart Vault Me Telegram. I said once it gets to 1,000 people, I'm going to stop promoting it. So if you want to be a founding member, you got to get in there soon. There's a new Telegram for Time Pays Me that's set up the same way, where I give you updates and you can make comments on each of those updates. And I'm still looking for feedback. If you know, how cool would it have been, if you could go back in time and advise Richard on things about HEX? A lot of people did it at the time. They advised him on it, and he made the right call on so many different parameters. I wasn't there then. I was a noob when it comes to like HEX, at least, because I didn't find out about it and get involved until the first week. Well, it was a couple months before the first week, but like I didn't know that I wasn't on Telegram yet or anything. For Pulse Chain, I was in the secret game theory chat to like advise Richard and everybody on that. But here's your chance now for something that could have a far reach. And so you all already told me that incentives were necessary, and that changed my mind. It was because of the 90 people that I talked to in the HEX community who I had personal conversations with that allowed me to get that part right. And then I nailed it with the actual specifics for sure. The 30-year time frame that's from feedback that I didn't want to put a limit, and then people made me think about it, and I did. So yeah, so now's your chance. This chance will disappear once the code is done and once everybody else has given their input and we get it right. So if you're watching this years in the future, aren't you glad we got it right? Aren't you glad all the people who weren't going to stand up and give their 2 cents, they took this call to action and changed the course of history? That's cool. So yeah, that's where things are at. Let me see. Anything else to wrap up on?
Not for me, buddy.
Cool.
Buy HEX everywhere.
Yeah, buy HEX everywhere. How's it doing on those other chains?
Volatile.
Is it?
Yeah. Well, it came close to being the same price on both chains. Pretty cool.
Did you see on Twitter, Richard's friend, is it Brett or Brent Morrissey? That guy? He was like asking people like, how do I buy HEX on ETHW and stuff?
Very interesting.
I don't know if that means something or doesn't. I really don't know. Like I could see it going either way. And so definitely don't take that as a clue or hint from me at all. I still am in the same situation I was with on all that, where like I value HEX on other chains. If people are going to keep selling it below what I bought in at, I'm probably going to keep, I'm the type to dollar cost average in on these things. And with the complete understanding that it could go down significantly in value, right? Like I'm not playing with money that I need in the short term, but on a long-term timeline, I want to have some skin in the game on that chain. And I certainly spoke my mind about it whenever people were saying incorrect things, and those people turned around and started saying correct things. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I've seen some changing on that too. Hey, listen, it's warranted that we cautious, right? And do your research. Make sure you understand what you're getting involved in. And we say it all the time, but most of us don't believe it when we say it. You have the opportunity to lose all your money. So know that that's the case, right?
Yep.
And like we talked about a couple weeks ago, I'm less of a proponent of putting new money in, but I totally get why people would do it. But I'm already there, and so
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I want Hex to look as good as it can there. And there's some interesting stuff. I know I keep bugging you about it. It is interesting to me how it's performing, and I'm watching the T-share rates. I check my stakes every day, my ladder, right? Because I could use StakeX today and just switch networks and go see how they're compared to each other and what's going on. The dollars don't match, of course, but
Oh, announcement. I almost forgot. I've been so busy with all this. Um, go.tshare.app now supports uh, HEX W,
nice.
the Ethereum fair chain. So that's cool. And
And
people should keep using whatever they're comfortable with. But if you're comfortable with my front end, then you can compare it to the other one that you're using and see how it differs. Or I mean, I'm going to do that too, but yeah. So I haven't looked at that in, gosh, time is flying. I haven't looked at that in 3 days. So do you know off the top of your head how the 3 different chains of Hex are performing in terms of T-share rate?
really close, really close. I can tell you exactly what they are, and in just a second. Um, Yeah, it's been really close, closer than I thought. Hex, excuse me, ETH W, I think actually was ahead
Yes.
for a period of time. I think we had talked about that on your chain, on
I
your
don't know that
show.
I've talked live about what I saw, which is at least one of the days or a handful of the days when I was staked on that chain. Remember, people, when I said I was staked, I meant it. Like, you know, that was that was a real thing. So when I went back and I looked, because I didn't know of anybody keeping track of like what the payout per T-share rate was um, on these other chains a week ago. And so I went back and looked, and sure enough, the average for Hex W for like the 5 days I was doing my test stake was like 9 hex per
Yeah.
T-share, 9.14 hex per T-share.
Yeah, there were some big days. I stopped trying to do it, by hand, and just haven't been tracking it. I just look at the number overall. So even today, the ETH W is at 24,263. Ethereum is at 24,250. So it's creeping up there. So it's
Can you say
still,
those again?
yeah, it's still running a little hot on ETH W. It's a little higher on ETH W than it is on ETH, and not unexpectedly, ETH Bear is lagging behind. We're just not getting the same level of engagement on ETH Fair as I call it
Yeah.
ETH Fair. I'm sorry, but than ETH W. And ETH W is the one that's going through the most volatility right now, price wise. So it's been pretty interesting, bouncing around. I mean, $600 or something for a million hex.
Wow. And I mean, it makes sense to me that the payout there is higher because that must mean that people have emergency end staked more.
Oh yeah.
In order to wreck themselves or extract profits, however you want to look at it.
Yeah, with that, yeah, it's got to be a complex situation that I can't figure out without all the data, and I have no way to get the data unless I was dev. But there's some complex things happening over there. There's people that are emergency end staking, probably some of the same people who are smart enough to know that they have big bags there to get out are probably ending their stakes because that's the only way the share rate could go up somebody would have to end their stake. It doesn't just go up magically. So that means they would have had to do that. But at the same time, people may not be restaking as much. And again, I don't have the numbers, so I don't know. And if they're not restaking, that means that the TShares aren't being replenished, which means the daily payout goes up. So there's a lot of things going on, right? Where that could turn into, some sort of 15 or 20, payout, depending how long this goes on. I don't want to jump to too much of a conclusion, but it's running higher than ETH is. It appears that way.
I think there was a way on Game Theory Gang that we used to like inaccurately represent how what the relationship was between TShares and interest. And so I think it's only due to the end staking behavior and not due at all to the how many TShares there are. Although that's something I'm still a little fuzzy on, but it's something that kind of Future Us and I have talked about over the years, like how there's like this really weird, unintuitive thing with like how like the smart contract is literally generating APY. And the best way I can describe it is like it has a lot more to do with that table of what percentage is staked versus it does how many TShares there are, which is
yeah.
But it's like kind of the inflation is based on one parameter rather than something else. So anyway, like, so sorry if like people are getting more confused, but I always like, I want to point out whenever there's like a tiny little thing that I'm not sure of. And so that way people can keep a running record of like what we know and what we don't know.
I got a whole book dedicated to things you say that I can check off and say,
oh, cool.
Right. No.
You might be joking, but there are some people who take notes. I mean, like,
I know. I'm joking.
And it's kind of cool to meet people, and then they have the exact same understanding and new ideas. That
yeah, well, that's not not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's only if they throw the book at you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Shout out to Nikki B real quick. $100 super chat. Thank you so much. You said Maddie's my dude. Thanks for being an asset and adding so much value. Chrispy, Hex Fire is great too. Nice work.
Thanks, Nikki B.
Yeah, shout out to you. Thank you so much for the $100. Thank you to Augie for the $4 super sticker as well. You both rock.
I like that. I like that sticker.
Oh, that's the profile picture. The sticker is doesn't show up on StreamYard. So sorry, go on.
Oh, it's back. We're back to Nikki. Hey, I was just gonna say to you though, I'm not gonna give it up. I may have to learn how to code this myself. Good accounting, man.
So there's no way to do it through the Block Explorer?
No, it's OK is what's it called? OK Link, Chinese company, right? Very difficult so far to get through with support and also online. One would think that you would be able to do the same thing you do on Etherscan. Go connect Web3 to it, but it doesn't recognize the new chains. It comes up as a failure. So I did send them an email.
Oh, nice.
I've almost bugged them as much as I've bugged you.
Okay.
But I've been bugging everybody because, hey, actually, I don't really have a horse in the game. I mean, I care because I have stakes over there.
It's interesting.
But the longer it takes, the better. I just find it interesting that it highlights that, and since the things have forked, probably the numbers are off, but like somebody has been good accounting stakes on the Ethereum chain to the tune of 30 million in penalties, right? So somebody's been doing that. and it's not getting done on these forks, which means if the forks survive long enough for somebody to create a function that will allow us to go good account somebody else's stake, that will be a huge boon, because I could see spending a few pennies to do a bunch of GAs.
And for people following along at home who aren't familiar with it, what would you say the benefit is to the system when somebody comes along and good accounts that runs good accounting for somebody else?
Oh, sure. At the highest level, or the most benevolent level, if it's your buddy or somebody you know, prevents them from being penalized, right? Because if you GA, they won't be penalized. For the rest of us, after that, those stakes, they get a 2-week
Grace period.
grace period, but then they are quote unquote penalized 1% per week. And of course, most of us assumed incorrectly that those penalties would automatically be paid out. They are not automatically paid out. What happens is that stake gets penalized on the contract until either somebody comes and good accounts it or ends it. Only the owner can end it, but anybody can good account. So in general, the idea has always been to wait 2 years until a stake has been completely bled out, and then good accounting. When you do the good accounting, those TShares stop eating up any of the yield that might be coming out, because they are counted in the pool for yield, and they take up a little bit of the yield, and the penalties are paid. So those are the two things that affect our system. So when somebody does a good account, you get a little bit more of a payout that day, and the number of TShares relative in the system go down a little bit, which increases the payout a little bit. Is it earth shattering? Not usually too much. The big ones like that time with the OAs, which is a good thing to bring up, because the OA's got some stuff coming here soon. But to finish this subject, a group of people like to do the GAs in advance, timed with their own stakes, in order to ensure that they get the greatest payout for when they're staking, and to also boost the TShare rate, because the payout gives ever a little bit more yield to kind of pump that up. And so it's being done deliberately for a variety of reasons. And you also have people on the fence about this. You also end up leaving, when you do these good accountings before they're completely bled, you strand HEX in wallets. So you're crystallizing our environment with more and more HEX stuck in all these little areas. And on the one hand, people worry that that's a risk, because people could come back and rediscover their HEX later.
And dump the price.
But it's pretty unlikely that it just seems to be that if you've forgotten about it this long, you're probably not coming back. Probably. I mean, I'm sure there'll be some cases.
Yeah. Wait till HEX is $100 each.
Yeah, I know, man. I'll be looking under the couch for my HEX. See where I put it. Hey, since I touched on that subject, give you some share rate news.
Please.
So, I monitor the share rates and what's happening with them. And this is on ETH chain, and we are moving forward like the system's designed to do, which is fine. And what we're able to do is be able to figure out when, through some modeling, when we're going to have big changes. And why is that important to us? Well, when we do have big changes, if you happen to be in the market for doing some staking, probably a good idea to avoid the big changes.
Yes.
And try to get things done that way. And so that being said, October 17th, I'm expecting, I'm pulling up on my screen to give exactly the rate information. But I'm expecting on or about October 16th, 17th, we should jump around 200 hex or so.
Wow.
Well, it should be about 300 hex. But the real news is the OA stakes that are coming after that. So we'll jump up a little bit because of this, but then the OA has a series of stakes that come out that may drive us up to 25,800 hex per T-share. And grand scheme of things, okay, I don't know. I have to do the percentages. We're talking about another 6% increase, but over time it makes a big difference.
Oh yeah.
So I would urge people to kind of keep an eye out for that. And if you planted a stake, try to get them in before those dates. And this applies to all of the ecosystems that rely on the share rate, right, for staking, because the other systems apply to that as well, right? Because they're using it in, the Hadron space. So get them done before those dates. You can look at the charts on Hexfire, see the exact dates. The other thing I'd bring up is this: there's a lot of hex coming out. Oh, it's a bigger topic. There's a lot of talk about $400 million worth of hex coming out between now and the end of the year.
Yeah. Could you please address that?
Yeah, it's probably going to be more than 400 million in the way we're measuring it, because people are looking at what the estimated payouts are going to be. And the reason for that is we're looking at fourth quarter of this year. Remember, quite a few people, I don't have the percentage off the top of my head, but it's a lot of the hex is getting staked for 45 days or less, and it's rolling, right? So we have at least 3 times that amount can be counted, actually be counted as having come out in the fourth quarter, and that'll be on
Okay.
top of the 400. But in the last quarter, we did 800 million or something. So even if it's 600-700 million in hex, I'm just want to alleviate the kind of fear. If I look backwards, and I did that, I went and looked at the last quarter, how much came out. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's right around 800
So
million.
we're looking at something that might be a little bit more than half of what came out in the previous quarter.
It'll probably be higher because so many people will restake.
Okay.
But I just urge people not to knee jerk and get too much FOMO and weirdness and FUD over the numbers. Go look into it a little bit further, because a lot's coming out. You guys, if you want to send me 400 million, send me 400 million. I'll take it. It would change my life. But in our system, it's really kind of like normal business.
Yeah.
If you get my meaning. So with that being said, that doesn't mean there aren't some pretty big stakes coming out. There are, and there are some pretty big ones that maybe another day we can analyze or something, but kind of see what they've been doing. But for the most part, the big ones are routine stakers. They may change their behavior. Don't know. The other thing though is going forward, kind of like OA stakes, and that's those are stakes we think are related to the OA, which is the origin address, tend to group up at the end of the year. So starting October 22nd through the end of the year, I don't know, get 9 or 10 stakes that are coming out from the OA. I'm very curious as to what the OA will do, because it'll make a difference for us in about, if they actually end them, it'll make a difference in payout of about 1,000 hex, probably something like that. So if they end them, share rate will go up about 1,000 hex over the next few months, more than it already will. And if they don't end them, what happens next? There's about 100,000 T-shares locked up in that, and so I don't know. We'll see. If the OA doesn't end them, I think I'd like some of those penalties. But
so you think somebody will good account them, and then that'll
they probably well, that's what happened last time, right?
And then the T-share rate will go up, right?
Well, they'll good account them, but it won't affect the T-share rate.
It won't,
because if they good account them, the T-share rate doesn't go up. But what will happen is we'll get a little tiny bit of increase in payout.
Okay, that's right. Yeah.
Until somebody stakes another 100,000 TShares and then kind of wipes it out.
Mhm. Yeah, that'll be fascinating. So, are there examples in the past of where the OA ended its own stakes? I guess uh,
For big
for big
payday.
payday?
And then I have, again, I'm kind of grasping that I'm correct about this, because I can't be certain these are the right addresses, but I only have one stake that was good accounted that I found. It was good accounted last year. Yeah, it would have been last year. And then it was ended like in January or something. But that was it. So I believe past behavior is for the OA is to do nothing with those stakes half post big payday. All right.
Mhm.
So then the question is, what's going to happen this time? I'm excited to see. I'd like to see the OA come in and do something with it. I don't know. I'd like to see
Yeah.
him restake. I don't know. On stake, emergency end
Do
stake on the
something.
last
Just something.
emergency end stake on the last day. Give us something.
Prove you're still alive out there.
Give us some excitement. You know.
Prove that you have a pulse.
Ah, ah, ah. I'm sure it's got pulse.
Yeah. Yeah, so that'll be fascinating. Yeah. I'll tell you, like, when it comes to OA behavior, I've even had to consider that with time pays me, of course.
Mhm.
And that'll be really interesting because I think that um, the ideal scenario would be either the OA or some random founder of a really influential top cryptocurrency, if either signaled that they thought that this was good for the ecosystem, um, the best case scenario would be they would give others, the indication that it's good, just like with Uniswap, right? Or MetaMask, or any kind of situation where other things have been recommended, right? And to some extent, and then if the OA did not participate in taking up a huge portion of the fees, you know, then that would leave more for everybody else. So that's what I would probably predict best case scenario.
Very interesting.
But it's also kind of cool that if the OA like really hated it, which again, I have quite the opposite like impression, but I mean, if so, like the OA has enough levers there to like to to make the bonuses go down by 20x or whatever, because because of just participating. So that's fascinating. I think that there are actually a number of levers like that I want to say I've maybe discovered or come back to in HEX that the OA has not used yet, and I think that's particularly interesting as well, of things that could play out.
Yeah,
Um,
no, yeah. I would say this, don't be surprised. You'll be surprised, but don't be surprised if behaviors are different than you thought they were going to be.
oh yeah. Well, when I was doing my long streams in the past couple of weeks, I pointed out that the majority of HEX streamers got things wrong like 3 different times, throughout history when it came to like the OA staking for big payday.
I was
Most
there.
people got that wrong. In terms of the OA sacrificing at the end, like
I don't know
people aren't
how I
misjudging it.
missed that either. You talk about cognitive dissonance. I mean, I guess I was listening and just did not want to hear that was going to happen.
Mm,
But damn, I mean, I wasn't like, it wasn't like it was a complete surprise, but it was like a 90% shocker.
yeah.
It was a shocker, you know. And then of course, you know, I don't know why it never occurred to me that was what would happen with Pulse as well. That we'd see a move like that. So anyways, I guess I don't trust myself to know exactly what the OA is going to do because I'm not the OA. I guess that's the reason. I don't know. I know. And we were, I was working with some guys on a potential project, and we were looking at it, and it was really focused on short stakers, and not to create any FUD at all. I don't mean it like that, but somebody, there's a guy in our community by the name of Angel Black. I don't know if you know him, ever seen him around. I don't know his real name. Anyways, fantastic, brilliant guy. Talked to him for hours and hours. A lot of people here probably have. But anyways, he pointed something out. It says we were looking at specifically servicing people who were doing short stakes, kind of like a similar maxi type of situation. It was a different protocol, different characteristics. But anyways, our thesis was, hey, listen, so many people doing short stakes, makes sense to give them better services. And he came back and says, what makes you think that short staking is going to be profitable forever? Well, think about that. Think about that a little deeper. That might be one you'll think about after this stream. What does that mean? What could that mean? Now, he doesn't have any special inside knowledge, but yeah, I mean, I just always assumed that if the price goes up, that short staking would be valuable, but that assumes I'm going to continue to get the kind of APY that I'm getting. And you know what? I don't control the APY. So yeah, things could happen.
That's exactly what I'm talking about when I say like levers that could be used that haven't been used yet.
Yeah.
Would be to make it less profitable, and in some cases, you could really punish short-term stakers or people holding liquid in some interesting ways that I don't know are possible in any other economic system, really, because what you've got there with the OA, and this is relevant, I believe that this is the case on HEX, Pulse Chain, and PulseX, that the OA outweighs everybody else 20 to 1. So it has 95% of the supply, which is like, that's a cool number. Like that number works in terms of being able to not only defend the system from malicious forks and copycats and stuff, but also maybe someday to protect the system from itself, from short stakers and that. So
yeah, I guess there's some things I think I said this to you maybe. Well, you answered my poll. When I put information up on this Hexfire site, I like half the time, like, am I going to cause trouble with this information? Because it can be misinterpreted, right? And people
yes,
think what they want to think, and I'm just reporting what I think are facts, So even when we start, some things I'm reluctant even to say, like ideas, because I'll try to think through the different things that could happen. But yeah, don't be surprised if APY goes up or goes down. Don't be surprised, right? And significantly in a short period of time. There could be stabilizing events. I don't have maybe it's a 2% chance, right? But there are a lot of people in some of the areas that I read, you probably read too, they're calling for lower APY, right? They think that the APY is too high. Now, is that right or wrong? I don't know. It's too big for me to kind of get my head around.
I've had the same thought, although I'll have to find out where you're reading these things so I can see what other people are saying too. Because
You understand, right? I mean,
yes.
And so, anyways,
Well,
I guess that's my point.
For the audience who maybe hasn't spent any time thinking about this sort of thing, it's really cool to recognize that there's a relationship between the interest that you're getting in HEX, or the yield is more accurate. So between that and the price appreciation,
There you go.
if people have less coins to sell, then more value is being transferred to the price appreciation instead of the number of tokens you have. Like if you're getting less tokens, but you have the same share, then that means that the tokens you get will be worth more compared to the dollar, all other things being equal. And so even when we look at time pays me, that's another kind of big brain observation that gets made when you understand the system is like, you actually do have value transfer between somebody paying a fee to incentivize, but you don't have to pay it up front. Like, you get to decide at any time. If the price appreciation starts to go nuts, then people are going to self-select to harvest that moment in time, and they're going to be paying everybody else who's like waiting for something even better. So creates an interesting dynamic that I think is totally fascinating. D Hexagon is making the comment here in the chat, APY will need to come down as price goes up. I think like that's a pretty true statement. And I think the way that Richard might think of it, based on all the things I've heard him say publicly, is that it really comes down to like what's going to attract new users.
Exactly.
Right? So that they know that they're getting a good deal. Now, we've just broken down the point that like they're getting the same deal no matter what. If they're time locking or they're playing a short-term game and that's what they want to play, they're getting what they're asking for. That they could do well or they could do poorly. Right. But the constant that's always true is like you're getting diluted over time if you're not time locking. And longer pays better when you're time locking, because the inflation is being paid from the people who are getting diluted to the people who are holding. And so, but when it comes down to like what the share is of all that, or like what the ratio is, I could see an argument either way is kind of what I'm saying. But so at the end of the day, it's like whatever brings you new users or keeps the current users from selling and keeps them engaged, either way. But remember, you have to also account for the 1000x that some people have done already. So if you lower the APY as the OA, if you lowered the APY significantly, you could still make a good case, maybe to the new people, that they're still getting a really good deal. But for those old people, you're not paying them so much on top of the 1000x that they already got, which like might be too much given the fact that you want new people to be able to come into the system to increase the price so that everybody can do well. So it kind of goes back to that idea of leaving meat on the bone, I think, is like where I get to with that argument. Is like, whenever you're designing a system where people are getting paid to hold up a price, that's really helpful. That's a really helpful feedback loop, because it's creating a situation where both sides are getting something, both sides are winning, both sides have a reason to leave meat on the bone for the new guy. That was the end of the very first HEX conference, was like the legendary time whenever Richard gave that quote about leaving meat on the bone for the new guy, whenever Kareem was saying, I would have staked for 30 years or 50 years if you let us, and that sort of thing. And so there is a famous comment that I usually go back to. I think it was in the HEX Rewind video too, actually. Oh, cool. Gaza is one of the first people in the live chat here who says straight up that they are going to market this to ETH people that they know. Yeah, because time pays me allows you to time lock your ETH. And if other people participate, you can get fees from them using time locking as their superpower so that you all win together. You know, if you join a group of people who over 15 years doesn't get shaken out by the market because, you know, you're surviving all that, well, you might have some situations where people are paying fees to each other, and that can make it worth it. Plus you have the security benefits, plus you save yourself from yourself. So there's like 3 ways you can win all in one for free. What's up, Crypto King? Good to see you in the chat. Yeah, so I mean, looking at OA behavior going forward is going to be fascinating. Understanding the different angles of the system, I think, is fun too. Just because, what else are we going to do while we're waiting for 15 years at a time? You know.
That's right.
Cool. So let me think. Is there anything else to report on? I know that Hexologist said that Richard is going to be going on stream with him on Hexo's channel this
Yes,
weekend.
he did. He did say that
on Saturday, and he wasn't lying this time.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe he is.
I don't know. I believe him. The way
I believe him. I believe everything he says. So I was surprised with the cutout, but the cutout looked really good. So
it's yeah.
I've been my theory is, you know what, this is pure FUD. Buy the
You're
rumor,
not getting your hopes up?
Buy the rumor, sell the news. He's announcing Saturday, man. We're launching.
Announces what?
We're gonna the launch date.
What? Hexo already said it's not Pulse Chain launch date.
That's fun.
I'm done joking about Pulse Chain launch date. I'm like, let's get Time Pays Me done. Let's make it so that Pulse Chain doesn't get paused by a bot attack, and then we can worry about getting our 18,000x in 656 days or whatever. Right.
So what do you think is going to happen Saturday?
What do I think is going to happen Saturday? I think Hexologist is going to wish Richard a happy birthday.
Very good.
Because it's his birthday coming up in about a week from Sunday. I think if I like set my reminder correctly. See, because I want to front run everybody who front ran 10,000x in 2.5 years. I want to front run them with wishing Richard a happy birthday. That's my revenge. Which is like pretty sweet because, you know, once we get to the 1 million X, then I'll really be able to rub it in, you know, that front running wasn't the best move in the book, but yeah. So I think that I mean, yeah. So that's my guess is like, you know, Hexologist, he interviewed Dev Kyle in the past week, and that was an outstanding interview. Now that I'm on the like deep dev dives myself, it like probably wasn't as revolutionary as it was for everybody else, because a lot of the stuff he was saying was like, yes, I'm very familiar with that already. But the way that Dev Kyle breaks down things is so helpful. It really is. And so that was one that people absolutely should go back and catch on Hexologist channel that happened in the past week. Here's another piece of alpha for you. I guess that'll be interesting. So with Time Pays Me, it's not our first priority, but I would not be against if it comes together so well, and if it passes multiple audits, and if it's on the testnet and people are using it responsibly and everything. I would not be against us building in something to where you could time lock your Pulse Chain and Pulse X tokens before you even get them. Right? Because this is programmable money we're talking about. And whenever I imagine a feature that I believe would add great value, the first thing I do is I run to Future Us and I'm like, is this possible? Right? And we talk about it for hours. We like we break down based on what you can do. And we kind of come up with a kind of a rough draft of how it would get coded. And then that gets put on our internal roadmap, right? That nobody has any expectations, but it's like, I want people to be prepared to make the best decisions they can. So even though that's not the first card in the deck that we're going to be dealing with, just to know that that's in there. We might get to it, we might not before Pulse Chain launches, but yeah, I think that that's an interesting angle on the whole thing too, because obviously I would use it. I would use it. A lot of people wouldn't probably use it ahead of time, but like I would use it. And I think there are people who would probably benefit from it. If we get all the other features, accomplished kind of in good time, that'd be kind of interesting, wouldn't it?
It would.
Cause at the end of the day, what wallet you're sacrificing from, and like how many coins you're getting.
Kind of like IOU from yourself.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it's you can tell the blockchain like this is what I need to do with coins that come from this contract. Like conceptually, you can do that. And whenever we talk about implementing something on the blockchain, it always comes down to like how valuable is that from a behavioral perspective, from a value perspective for the people who, would people even use it? What was it? Oh, there was some like, oh, I guess that's not a crypto thing, but it was like StreamYard was introducing a new feature. And when it popped up yesterday, I was like, that's so dumb. I will never use that. But it's like, so there are features that people get so excited about creating, but then the market doesn't care. So that's important to keep in mind. It's part of the process here. But what it really, really, really comes down to in the end is like, are these actions going to be gas efficient? And how is the game theory going to come back and bite you if you haven't considered all the angles? And so like HEX is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful example where it didn't get launched early because there were so many things that kept coming back and biting you when you tried to create something so simple as a blockchain CD. Longer pays better. Well, now you have to worry about, short stakers. You have to worry, you have to develop a TShares system. You have to figure out how you're going to account for every single day. And what you came up with at the end was like, it was something where you couldn't make 30-year stakes because it would fill up blocks with just one 10, 10, 10 or whatever it would be. It would just fill up the whole space and be unworkable. And so, I really wish I was there with you guys when Richard was going over it publicly, I guess, and in Telegram rooms.
There was a lot of it, yeah. I wouldn't tell you I contributed anything, but I read a lot of that stuff.
That's cool, yeah.
And made comments. It was definitely interesting, that's for sure. Try to figure out all the different things he was going after.
Yeah. So it's really been exciting for me to work with game theory and be like going down a path, and then it's like, nope, can't do that. Like,
it's still exciting today.
It is. In a lot of ways. And so, cool. Well, yeah, it looks like people have learned what they wanted to today when it comes to game theory gang. Thanks to Chrispy man for coming on. Let's see. If you design and build a multi-sig wallet, it would help a lot of people. This is better because it's like a smart contract that gives you multi-sig powers without giving the people that are out there control in the end. Like, it's basically reserving the right to give control to another wallet without giving it at that moment. And that's helpful because part of crypto is where you hold your own keys and you don't pool your funds. And it's really crude and, elementary, like just to be able to have to give a 2 out of 3 signature as your only solution when this is programmable money. So like this solution is better where you can give control to another wallet in the future if needed. And controlling or like creating a wallet is not something I'm particularly interested in because Richard Hart's coming out with a wallet and MetaMask already has a wallet. And so we already have something when it comes to wallet technology. What we need is better smart contract technology. And what that looks like with Time Pays Me, you go to our smart contract factory and you mint your own smart contract. So it's not that you're using our smart contract, you're creating your own with the rules that we programmed in. And that's another piece that I think is fascinating. So look at Uniswap. Uniswap is another example of a smart contract factory when you create LP positions, because your LP position is an example of a smart contract, right? So so that's probably the best analogy I could use. I think a lot of people will confuse Time Pays Me as a wallet. That's what they'll think of it as, because it's like, what's paying me? Most people don't even know that their crypto isn't held in their wallet. It's held on the blockchain. And then your wallet is just the way that you sign for it. So,
get that all the time.
Which is like a fun nuance to try to explain to a new person, because it's like, at the end of the day, whoever has what's in your wallet has, the ability to spend what you have. So in some ways it's just a technical point more than anything, but it, yeah. So I'm sure we're going to get accused of being a wallet time and time again. The other important thing to like be very clear about is like, this is non-custodial for us. You're holding your own keys. You're the one who holds the vault. You mint the vault yourself, like, and the only thing really that the vault needs to do is kind of report to the mothership, as we call it, like to another smart contract. It just has to report like basically what you're doing when it comes to taking loans from yourself, so that when you send your fee into the pool, right, you're the one who's recording for everyone else to see that those fees now get paid to anybody who's time locked at that point with their 10%. So, so there's, even though there will be the slightest little bit of communication there between a kind of a master contract and an individual contract. I'm not sure that's what they're actually called, but between your vault and kind of the pool of fees, in the end, it all works trustlessly to be able to prove exactly how much of the fees you have a share of and like what your share is. And it, makes sense just like it would in real life, like if you had 10% of the pool, then you should get 10% of the fees that were generated at that time. And there are probably some other, nuances that don't need to be gotten into at this time, but. Even 3 Arrows Capital moved into Gnosis safes with their NFTs. I say again, good job, Maddie. Thanks. A good cold storage wallet, Trezor. There we go. For the Pulse lockup, the incentive would have to be designed for that feature. Just time locking is fine to me. Yeah. Wait, let me go back. It'd be easy. to implement in Pulse Chain before launch, maybe a lock ladder. Yeah, I mean, I think there's great value in me bringing this to market because Pulse Chain is already developing a lot of things, and it makes sense to have, you know, as many people building useful things as possible. So I think, yeah, initially I was like, yeah, why don't I just tell Richard this idea and then he can do it? But that's not really how things work. It's like, if you want something, you have to build it. And I was the one who took that responsibility on. And it's actually, when you use time pays me, it's like a continuous ladder because you're getting dripped out based on the amount of time served. And so, you know, it's really great from that perspective. And there's going to be a bonus at the end for you when you serve your time, whether you like it or not, whether it's the 10% that you didn't take, or I guess maybe there wouldn't be if you kept taking. I think even if you keep taking your 10%, there's still gonna be something extra left for you at the end. Just based on the timing of everything and how your drip pays you back and that sort of thing. So build it, they will come. That's right. Cool. Well, that's all we've got for now. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Please share this out. Please let other people know about Time Pays Me. Follow on Telegram, on Twitter. Check out the thread. I'm going to be reformatting the white paper, adding to it, taking your feedback when you go to the Telegram group for Smart Vault Me. Yeah, so thanks again for everybody tuning in. Thanks to Chrispy, man. And
thanks for the invite.
Yeah, my pleasure. Let me see. I got to queue up my outro. So I got to get my thumbnail out here too. There we go. Time pays me. So yeah, what do I normally say at the end? Until next time, stake wisely, my friends, and peace out. Shout out to Funding Jim. What's up, man? Thanks for tuning in. Check out the beginning of the stream or the Twitter thread is the best.